Hi, this is Dr. Gayle, and I wanted you to know I have a whole bunch of other things to offer you. If you go to spunkyoldbroad.com, you will see an array of SOB stuff for sale and all our latest products and additions. If you're interested in getting on TV, I have a brand new course, Get on TV. And if you want to start your own business, you'll want my SOB Guide to Business Success. I know you'll love them all. I guarantee it.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gayle Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. My guest today is Anna Jezuita. She is an expat from Poland, an ex-barrister, and she's now qualified as a psychotherapist. She says that she didn't, really have the happiest time as a barrister on the planet, but she didn't have the courage to admit it. So changing countries and being a mom seemed like a good solution. Her life in London gave her an experience of cultural alienation, single parenting, and courage to build a new career and business as a therapist and mindfulness teacher. In terms of business experience, she's a late bloomer, but has lots of life experience that helps in her work. Welcome, Anna.
Hello, Gayle. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And I always talk about, I have a speech I do called Reinventing Ageism, and I talk about the fact of all the life experience that people have that they don't give themselves credit for, because that really does give them a leg up on who they are and what they can do. So my sister she just retired as a psychotherapist, but tell everybody else, what is the nature of what you do?
Well, I help people to find themselves, basically. I like to describe myself as a Sherpa, like when people go to Mount Everest, they have somebody who's already been there, who knows all the way back and forth, who understands all the trials and tribulations, who can carry the luggage for them. But it's not for their ego to reach the mountain. They're just there to assist in the travel. And for me, the whole idea of therapy and self-development is like a challenge. It's like, what is more interesting in life than getting to know who you are? Everything else that comes your way, it's just a tool so that you can realize who you really are. That's how I see it. So that's pretty much what I do. And I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah, people need people like you, and it's nice to know that there's someone to guide them along the way. So you say you are a late bloomer, which many of our listeners are late bloomers. So
Really?
Was it a choice? Oh, yes. Was it a choice to start your own practice that late, or what made you do that?
Well, it wasn't a choice. I think it was I like to think that partly it was because of circumstances, because I was born in Poland and I grew up for all my formative years up until maybe late 20s. I grew up in a communist country, behind the Iron Curtain. And it was a place where you didn't have a lot of expectations about life. The main thing was to find something that gives you some sort of idea, some sort of opportunity to survive, really. There was not much opportunity to be better than others because that was ideologically incorrect. So, so that was the circumstances. There was also my parents who were very risk averse, and everything that I was taught was about social conforming, which was also, the nature of that society, because it was a lot of fear in the air. But that's basically a little bit of a cop-out, because I'm like, blaming it on the external. But actually, I think what I made out of it, I made this whole story completely my own, and I became a walking impersonation of imposter syndrome. I was just so anxious, so busy, so trying to, to be liked and not to be discovered as imposter, as somebody who, who's not liked. So I wasn't spending any time really on thinking who I am, what I want. I don't lie, honestly, I spent maybe first 30 years of my life trying to figure out how to be liked. So that's.
But you know something, I have to tell you something, Anna, that is not something that's just indigenous to a communist country.
No.
There's a lot of people in the U.S. and in the free world that think the same way, and so you're talking to people who really get that. So you said it took you time to get out of your own way. So
absolutely, yeah. Well, just like it's not indigenous to communist country, because absolutely there were people who were not like me, Even in the communist country, there were people who were very successful, very ambitious, and very, striving, and they didn't care about the circumstance. So, it kind of proves that we pick out of the environment kind of what chimes with our anxieties, maybe, or, it's like you become who you want to become a little bit. So, yeah, what I mean by getting out of my own way was trying to discover who I really was. So, I was a barrister in Poland, and I was quite successful, I was told. And I came to the point where I thought, and everybody was telling me, like, what's wrong with you? What don't you like about being a barrister? Which bit? Like having a lot of money, having a lot of time and flexibility, waltzing around court in floating robes and feeling very important. Which bit don't you like, honey? What's wrong? And I didn't know. And I'm thinking, yeah, maybe there is something wrong with me. But fortunately, by circumstance again, circumstances that I kind of invited and encouraged, I met my children's dad. He was English. I got pregnant and I got out of the country. It was, by the way, it was after the communism. It was after the Berlin Wall. So it wasn't like I was escaping economically. I was escaping actually from Clifford Chance, from big corporate law company, where I felt that if I stay any day longer, they will fire me. So that's how bad my imposter syndrome was.
Wow. So
yeah,
and it's hard for me to even picture in a communist country a big law firm or you as a barrister in long flowing robes. I mean, you don't think of that. I mean, it shows you the pictures that I have of what it's like, because I've often wondered how would I have been if I was raised anywhere other than I was by any other parents than who I had. So what would it like to start a new life and a career later in life?
Well, so my career didn't start for a while. It was when I came to England, I had my children and I had an excuse not to think about anything else. And it was really actually very nice, because by not thinking about me, I kind of desensitized this imposter syndrome. I desensitized this feeling of insecurity and feeling of inferiority, because I was focused on the children, and children really focus your kind of, sharpen your view, and the decision making is so much easier because you know exactly what needs to be done. So I think maybe that gave me a little bit of a respite. And then when I started thinking like, okay, enough of children television, because my brain is not working anymore. I don't remember like basic facts in history. And then I thought, well, maybe this is something that I could do. It was coincidence again, because I went to some psychological kind of workshop invited by my friend. And I thought, oh, maybe I could do that. Because just the thought of going back to law gave me such a panic attack that I thought there is no way. And then the process of getting out of my way was a combination of, when you do your psychotherapy training, you have to be in your own therapy. And then I started discovering things about myself, like, oh my God, what I was being told all my life I should be and I strive to be, that's not me. I'm not interested in being that. And also,
And that's where the imposter syndrome came in.
Yeah, exactly. And also, Polish culture is very much sort of overstatement, the nature of, the culture of overstatement. So if you like something, you say, I absolutely love it. And if you don't like something, you say, I hate it, or I'll kill you. Whereas in England, it's the opposite. It's the culture of understatement. So if you like something, you will say, well, I think it's kind of rather nice. And and if you hate something, you'll say, well, I'm afraid that's not my cup of tea. So I was really caught in these two different emotional landscapes. And then I discovered that actually I don't like to be completely ruled by my emotions and by my thoughts. I really started feeling like, that somebody's grabbing me by the neck and swirling me around the room. And I thought, no, that's not the best thing. And then I discovered mindfulness, which was actually a lifesaver. Initially, it was just a tool, not to explode, not to be completely, swayed by my thoughts. Because actually, from imposter syndrome in Poland to becoming an ET in England, it was not such an easy transition, because I was like, ET phone home. I didn't realize that moving a country, it will be such a shock culturally. What the sense of humor is, what people find interesting, how people express their emotions. So I did speak English very well. But I realized that I don't speak English. I know a lot of English words, but I don't understand what English people say. So, for example,
even the culture between the Brits and the U.S. is very different. I mean, we're out there. We say what's on our mind. We're very upfront, and the Brits are a lot more conservative. I did a lot of training in England. I probably saw more of England than most Brits have seen, because I was everywhere. I mean, I was just in these little small towns. I was in the big places like Birmingham and London and, so forth. And it was really, really interesting. So, yeah, and they have, of course, different words for different things that we have here. So what are the pros and cons then of doing what you did?
Well, the pros and cons of starting later in life. The pros are definitely that by the time I started to think about my own business, I've trained, I worked a little bit for different companies, and I raised the children, got to know the culture. And all the time I was working around my own sort of stuff, getting out of my way, as I said. So I realized that actually I don't care what other people say. I get to understand myself so much better. And this saying, what other people think about you is none of your business.
Yes.
It's such a shift from the imposter syndrome when you constantly live in other people's heads. You just kind of sneak into people's heads and hearts and try to figure out what they think of you. Whereas the other way around, it's you are much more have much more freedom to do what you want, and also you are not engaging in this compare and despair game, which takes so much energy. So really, plus, now my children are much older. They basically fend for themselves. So nobody tells you what the responsibility it is to have children. So all of a sudden, when it's gone, I'm thinking there is absolutely nothing that I'm worried about. And anyway, nothing of substance, because as far as I'm concerned, I can manage. So no matter how much the whole business goes, excuse my language, it tits up, I'll be fine, because it's just for me and for my enjoyment, really. So that's why I've developed this really nice way of looking at business and at life, which again took some courage, because the business people, they go about goals, actions, the what's your motivation, where are you striving? And I thought, well, I'm not like that. I'm more like, it's like going on the very, very narrow kayak down the very, very fast stream. I'm striving to be this. I want to be that. And I thought, well, if you live your life as a research project, you don't ask the question where I want to be. You ask the question, for example, what happens if I, decide to only take clients that I'm really interested in?
Well,
And
it's funny because, you talk about the research project, and one of the things that I was going to ask you was about what it meant to treat life as a research project. But you also said that this particular model is especially useful for women. So can you explain that?
Yes, well, because treating life as a research project, you're constantly asking questions and you're curious. You're not attached to the result. When researchers don't say, we want to discover that, the dogs understand more than cats. No, the researchers ask the question, is it true? Is it possible that dogs understand more than cats? And they have to take any evidence for and against the question. And if the evidence is against, they change the question. But they never stop being interested. They never stop being curious. And they live well with uncertainty. And this is kind of like, if you think about women who have by nature, women have to make space, because having a child, the possibility of conceiving, possibility of growing another life inside yourself has to invite the ability to live with uncertainty, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Because it's something, isn't it? It's a completely
I had
unknown.
3 children, and you had 3 different personalities, totally 3 different ways of doing things. So it's true.
3 different research projects.
That's right.
So the male, and I'm not saying men, women, it's more like yin and yang. So, but male understanding, so male understanding is more like Excel spreadsheets. So everything is kind of regimented and everything has to be kind of defined. So so men's world is like a cell in Excel, whereas female world is like a cell that grows. Like, it's a cell that can multiply, that's a cell that can grow into anything. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Some people call that male energy and female energy, and I think I know that I've always had a lot of male energy, and as I've aged, I'm trying to develop more feminine energy and becoming a little softer, about things that I do. But I know that all the time I've been in business, there was a lot of male energy there,
And we absorb that because, men were traditionally the ones who created the rules. And that was their preferred way. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, or one has a place, one doesn't. But like you say, ideally, we want to be able to have both. Ideally, like yin and yang, we would like to have balance and be able to adopt one way or the other, depending what's more appropriate. To have some stages in life when you may be younger, striving because you need to have your first home, you need to have your, children going to school. It's very appropriate to have this sort of narrow focused way, but also it's important to put it to one side, because if you're always swimming on this narrow boat down the stream, fast paced on the kayak, you never see the landscape, you never see the indigenous people standing on the shore with offerings. But if you treat life as a research project, you're more kind of like meandering on the little raft. And you're still moving forward. It's not like you're stuck.
So Anna, what would you say that you would give, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh my God, go to therapy, sweetheart, and stop being so anxious. Stop being so anxious and be a better friend. And I think that's the advice for everyone. We're so good in being our headmaster, inner critic, the worst the worst friend. But actually, if you are your best friend, then you think like, what can I do to help you? What can I do to support you? And also, I know you as your best friend. I know that you are not a bad person. I've seen you in your worst and your best moments, and I really know that you mean well. So you're not lazy. You are not vicious. You're not mean. You just need to keep learning, sweetheart. That's all.
So how did all of this affect how you raised your children?
Oh, you should ask them. I don't know. Well, I think my children, they are very well balanced people, very sort of very independent, and I don't take a lot of credit for it myself. I think maybe I was lucky, but actually I was much less anxious, and because I was less anxious, I was able to let them be and make them their own choices. So, for example, my younger son decided not to go to study, not to go to college, because he wanted to play football. My old self would completely freak out and say no over my dead body. But myself now is able to see like, no, because actually nobody knows what outcome or which road is better for him and what is meant to learn on each of the roads. And actually, whatever they choose, it's just their life. There is no better or worse.
That's true. But I know you have a gift that you want to offer, which is an antidote for imposter syndrome, aka compare and despair syndrome. And you said it's available on your YouTube channel as a meditation, and you wanted to take a few minutes to talk about that. So why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners what that is all about?
Okay, so this is a true gift, because when I told you about it, I didn't have a YouTube channel and I didn't have that meditation. So it was truly the sort of in living the life as a research project. So I was like, so what happens if I do this? So I hope your listeners will be understanding, because it's not perfect, but the intention is behind it. The intention behind it is to give you a very quick shift in perspective, because imposter syndrome is very much inward. It's like sucking ourselves into ourselves, like me, what about me? Whereas when you practice that little meditation, you start seeing yourself more like other people. You start seeing yourself like them. So the 5 parts, you just meditate on 5 sentences. Just like me, you bring the person in front of your eyes. Just like me, she wants to be happy. Just like me, she wants to avoid pain and suffering. Just like me, she makes mistakes. Just like me, she's somebody's child. Just like me, she just wants to make sense out of her life. She doesn't wake up in the morning trying to make my life hell.
Well,
And
give
once we
us
start,
the name of your channel so they'll know where to go and find this,
it's Anna Jezuita Mindfulness,
which is spelled
and J,
ANNA
yes, yes,
JEZUITA, correct?
correct. And if you type the title, How to Overcome Imposter Syndrome, hopefully I will come up as well somewhere. But Anna Jesuita Mindfulness. And if you give me some kind of feedback, if you subscribe to my channel, that would be so nice because I've only just started it. So it will
And
be
if
a
you want to
beautiful
find
gift for me.
Anna, you can go to her website, which is Jezuita, what I just gave you, JEZUITA therapy.co.uk, because she is based in England. So, I think everybody needs something like this. I think that it will help everybody. And so go to the YouTube. You can find anything you want today on YouTube. So go to her channel and find out what her meditation is all about. You'll find out about the antidote for the imposter syndrome, and it'll help you if you feel like you're being somebody who you're really not. This is the way to overcome it and compensate for it. Thank you so much for being with us today, Anna. We've enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your. I know it's a little late there in the UK, but enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, and we look forward to hoping that some of our listeners will go to your site and get your meditation. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. Thank you, Gayle. Good night.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I choose my guests carefully, so if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out my intro program, Mindset Matters, at www.sobmindset.com. See you next week.